If you've been following my past reviews, which you should be, although I'll forgive you if you missed a few, you'll remember that I'm a pretty big old-school Mega Man fan. I've already told you my opinions on 2 and 5, and the Game Boy version of 4, but we're going to fast forward a bit to Mega Man X. Just to be clear for those who don't know, Mega Man X doesn't really mean Mega Man 10. Instead, the X is more like the new generation of Mega Man, in which you control a new form of him. You actually start out physically weaker than the classic Mega Man, but through various power-ups, he'll increase his powers to become more deadly than any robot you've ever seen. Because this is the future, there's no more Dr. Light and Dr. Wily. Well, technically there's no Dr. Light. Although Dr. Light created X, he actually put him in a pod, only to be released when his AI was deemed safe to live around humans, since he was the most realistic robot Dr. Light ever created. All this is told to you in an interesting intro scene, where you're also introduced to the system specs and weapons that X has available to him. Now, I said technically Dr. Light isn't in the game because he only exists in holographic form. Throughout the game, you can find special upgrade capsules. In each of these, X upgrades a system, and Dr. Light explains in his holographic form what the upgrade does. Only one of these upgrades is absolutely mandatory, and this is in Chill Penguin's stage, where you'll find the dash upgrade. Basically, sliding is no longer available in Mega Man X, but the dash is better because you can fire while doing it, and you also do more damage when dashing and firing. I'm not going to do the normal round the horn routine for this game. Instead, I'm going to explain one of the new features that's actually pretty cool. The stages are somewhat dynamic. Let me drill down and show you what this means. Every stage has some sort of power-up for X. At the least, it's a heart tank, which increases X health bar. You can also find reserve energy tanks, which are slightly different than the classic E-tanks, and I'll explain that a little bit later. You can also find the upgrade capsules. Anyway, as you progress through the stages, you might find that some of these upgrades are either impossible to get to, or you might not know how to get to it. The thing is that these power-ups are only obtainable when you either have a certain weapon, or have defeated a certain Maverick, or the new version of the Robot Masters. That's because there are some bosses that cause alterations to the stages. For example, when you defeat Ice Penguin, you can enter Flame Mammoth stage to find out that the lava parts have been iced completely over, and no longer cause a threat. Because of this, you can now safely grab the heart tank. These changes happen all over, so it makes you replay certain stages to fully upgrade X. Since I mentioned the reserve tanks, may as well talk about those really quickly. Instead of collecting them and using them when you need to, they function more like Metroid's reserve tanks. You collect it and it starts out empty, but when you collect energy when your health is already full, it'll get added to a reserve tank. You also don't need to wait until it's full, although that's obviously the best way of using it. But hell, if you need to use it to live, by all means, do so. The other power-up addition I want to talk about are the capsules. There are a total of 5 of them, with one of them being a secret one. These consist of a dash upgrade, a helmet upgrade, an armor buff, and a weapon upgrade. Well, technically there's 2 weapon upgrades, but I'll get there in a sec. As I said, dash is the only one that you're forced to get, although later on in the game you'll be given the weapon upgrade if you couldn't find the capsule for it. Anyway, the armor power-up diminishes the amount of damage you take when getting hit. The helmet allows you to break certain blocks with your head, and is required to get many of the other power-ups of the game. The weapon upgrade can only be obtained via capsule if you have the upgraded helmet, and it's a real pain in the ass to successfully grab. If you botch it in any form, you have to restart the stage because you won't be able to get a grip on the wall to reclimb it. However, it's worth it, as it allows you to charge up your Mega Buster to a 4th level, giving it even more power than before. Even better, this weapon upgrade also allows you to be able to charge up all of your sub-weapons. Only a few of these charged weapons are really useful, but it's a pretty sweet feature to have. So what's the secret upgrade? Well, it requires you to have fully maxed out X's capabilities. If you've done so, you can find the capsule right before the Armored Armadillo end door. When you're on the cart-like platform and it jumps over the massive cliff, you can just climb the wall to find the capsule there. This upgrade? Well, okay, it's a frickin' Hadouken. You perform it exactly as you would expect. However, X does need to be at max health to use it. It will effectively kill every enemy and boss in one hit. The only one it doesn't work against is the final boss. You'd think that this would make the game too easy, but remember, X needs to stand still and have max health to use the Hadouken, so he's pretty much a sitting duck when you do want to use it. If anything, I'd say it's more of a novelty thing than something you can actually use effectively. At the same time though, it's still pretty cool to hear X yell Hadouken. Moving on, once you get past all the Mavericks, you move on to Sigma's lair. Sigma's the main bad guy, and according to the storyline, He used to be on the good side until he contracted what was called Maverick virus, basically altering his thoughts and not caring whether humans survived. X is on a quest to stop him. It's essentially your normal Mega Man versus bad guy scenario, but in Mega Man X, it's a bit more fleshed out. Anyway, back on topic. Sigma's fortress acts just like Dr. Wily's used to. You have multiple stages leading up to the final confrontation. In the first stage, you'll have to fight Vile, the mini-boss from the very first introductory level. This time you can actually kill him, and you obtain the weapon charge upgrade if you couldn't acquire the capsule. After that, you can progress through the levels as normal. The bosses can be pretty tricky, especially this damn spider one. He'll shoot down little spiders and crawl down at you on the paths, so you have to guess where it might end up to avoid being damaged. It's not so hard at first, but as you damage a spider, it will get faster, making it much tougher to avoid. You'll know when you're at the final stage because you'll start in a vertical chamber with small centipede-like creatures coming out of the holes. This is a perfect place to grab extra lives, weapon energy, and fill up your reserve tanks. You also want to make sure you're fully prepared, because once you hit the top area, you have 3 consecutive boss battles to fight before you can announce your victory to the world. The first is Sigma's cat, which is fairly easy if you stay along the wall. Next is Sigma, and if you can get a pattern down on him while jumping, you can actually kill him pretty easily. If you do it right, you'll never even have to worry about the energy waves he fires. Finally, once defeating Sigma, you get to fight Super Sigma. Alright, I don't know if that's really the name of it, but basically Sigma's body was destroyed so his head merges with a giant beast-like machine. Now, here is the final boss. The only way to hit him is to strike his head with a fully powered shot. No sub-weapons will work on him, so don't bother. The trick is that you don't get a whole lot of available moments to attack, so you'll be doing a lot of evading. The only way to get to his head is to jump on his hands when they come down, quickly charge up, and then attack before the hand releases its lightning charge. If you're really skilled at the game, you might be able to wall climb to the hands and then shoot a shot that way, but to me it was a bit more dangerous than I wanted it to be. If you're persistent and patient, you'll defeat Sigma, but it's in no way easy. Just remember to use your reserve tanks, because if you do die, you start at the beginning of the stage and you can just recharge them again. The graphics and the music really play a huge part in the fun of the game. The music has the same quality as the majority of Capcom's SNES library, so it really shouldn't be too much of a surprise to say that it's amazing. The graphics, on the other hand, are some of the best to see on the SNES. Everything is very colorful and detailed. This is especially true of X. When jumping, his mouth opens like he's yelling a battle cry. When getting upgrades, X's armor actually changes colors. At the end of the game, if you've gotten all of the possible gear, X goes from being a standard blue color to a mix of blue and white. Finally, although it may be a bit hard to notice, when you have critically low health remaining, X will breathe heavily when standing still. Even cooler, in Chill Penguin stage, you can see a low cloud of vapor. Now that's freaking sweet. In keeping with the Mega Man tradition, there's still a password system. Now, I'm sure Capcom could have implemented some sort of battery backup feature, but the password system works just fine. It's actually simple, since they replaced the grid and dots with a flat-out number system, so it's much easier to use. Sadly, it still doesn't keep track of how full the energy reserve tanks are, or how many lives you have remaining. The controls are actually very simple to use too. Y shoots while B jumps. There's 2 methods of dashing. One is to press A, and the other is to double tap direction. Either way works fine, but when dashing off of a wall, it's much easier to use A, and this even takes a little bit of practice. Also, instead of having to pause to choose which sub-weapon you want, you can now cycle between them all by pressing L and R. It may not seem like much, but this is a very welcome addition, in my opinion. Mega Man X is truly an amazing game, even to this day. It was one of the first I owned on SNES, and I've played it quite a bit. If you have an SNES laying around, dust it off and find this game to see what all the fuss is about. Final score? 10 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.